My manager gives clear instructions but rarely asks for our input. It feels more like following orders than being part of decisions. Just listen to that quote for a second. That is a raw, very real perspective from a frontline retail employee at a store in Vietnam. And it instantly strips away all the academic jargon and drops us right into the human stakes of organizational behavior. When we talk about workplace dynamics, we aren't just debating abstract theories, right? We're talking about the daily reality of real people just trying to feel valued and heard at their jobs.
Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this fascinating case study today. Our goal here is to dig into a brand new October 2025 study and analyze exactly how cultural context actively reshapes standard workplace theories. We often read management textbooks and just kind of assume the rules of leadership and motivation are universal. But what happens when those global best practices slam into deep-rooted local cultural realities? Well, we are going to find out.
Okay, let's dive into this by posing a really central question. Can Western management theories actually survive in an Eastern workplace? Because much of the existing literature on organizational behavior comes straight out of North America and Europe. It naturally assumes certain things about human behavior in the office, but as you'll see, when you pick up those exact same theories and transport them to a completely different cultural landscape, the rules of the game change entirely. Section 1. The Knowledge Economy Challenge, Setting the Stakes for Modern Retail.
To really understand why this matters right now, we have to recognize that in today's cutthroat market, success doesn't just come from capital or having a lot of physical inventory. Knowledge, skills, and innovation are the actual drivers of productivity. For retail businesses, employees are no longer just gears in a machine executing tasks. They are the critical contributors to organizational learning and the literal creators of the customer experience. And that relies entirely on continuous learning. We define this as engaging in ongoing skill development and behavioral adaptation to equip employees for digital transformation and innovation. It's absolutely crucial. A company's ability to maintain service quality, build customer loyalty, and survive market disruptions depends heavily on frontline employees actively participating in this kind of continuous skill development.
Section 2. Meet Juno Fashion, Vietnam's prominent retail laboratory.
To see continuous learning and organizational behavior in action, we need a real-world laboratory. Juno Fashion is the focus of our October 2025 study, and honestly, their rapid growth makes them the perfect test case to see what happens when textbook theory hits the sales floor in a booming, dynamic market. To give you a sense of their scale, Juno Fashion operates 65 physical retail stores across Vietnam. They're a highly prominent player specializing in women's footwear, handbags, and apparel, and they are competing directly with massive global fast fashion brands. Let's move to and see how this builds. Behind those 65 stores is a workforce of 600 employees. That covers both the frontline retail staff out on the floor and the back office operations behind the scenes. That is 600 distinct individuals, all needing motivation, leadership, and development in a very high-pressure environment. So here is a quick overview of Juno's position. As a prominent Vietnamese fashion retailer undergoing massive physical expansion alongside explosive e-commerce growth, they're facing some incredibly steep digital transformation challenges. They need their workforce to adapt quickly, to learn all these new digital retailing tools, and to keep customer service standards flawlessly high. Basically, they're trying to professionalize their workforce management right in the middle of this intense expansion. Section 3. When theory meets culture. Western models collide with Eastern values. Now, I want you to think about the established management rules you might just take for granted. Concepts like totally empowering employees, actively encouraging them to challenge the status quo, or offering them complete autonomy. What happens when those Western-centric models collide head-on with Eastern values? And this brilliantly illustrates the exact tension the researchers found. Western organizational behavior models typically thrive on individualism, autonomy, and low power distance, which basically means employees feel totally comfortable challenging their bosses. But Vietnamese national culture is deeply influenced by Confucian values. It places a massive emphasis on collectivism, group harmony, and high power distance. Authority is deeply respected. Subordinates very rarely challenge their superiors, and group loyalty is everything. You literally cannot just drop a Western management playbook into this environment without making some major adjustments. Take transformational leadership, for example. We define it as a style emphasizing vision, inspiration, creativity, and empowerment to enhance adaptability. Globally, you'll hear this hailed as the absolute ultimate way to drive innovation. But in Vietnam, the researchers found that leaders who push too strongly for employee autonomy without respecting that traditional hierarchy often face really stiff resistance. Why? Because employees there actively expect clear authority and direct guidance. Or let's consider Hertzberg's two-factor theory. This is the one that distinguishes between hygiene factors, like pay and working conditions, which basically just prevent people from being miserable, and actual motivators, like recognition and career growth. Now, in a low-power distance culture, getting a shout-out or recognition from a peer might be super motivating. But in Vietnam's high-power distance culture, recognition often only carries true, deep motivational weight when it comes strictly from senior leaders. Section 4. The data. Inside the stores, surveying Juno's 600 employees. So theory is one thing, but what does the actual data say? Looking at the raw data collected straight from Juno Fashion's workforce, notice the extreme contrast in these scores, which are measured on a 1 to 5 scale. Teamwork and collaboration scored an impressive 3.7 that perfectly reflects the Vietnamese collectivist culture, strong group harmony and peer support. But then look at the drop-off. Training adequacy sits at just 3.1, and fairness in promotions is the absolute lowest at 3.0. So the group cohesion is definitely there, but individual development and perceived fairness are lagging way behind. We can humanize that low 3.1 training score with another direct quote, this time from a frontline employee in Store 1. The training I received when joining was very brief. I had to learn most things by observing colleagues. This reveals a really critical gap. Relying purely on colleagues to teach each other works great for maintaining group harmony, for sure, but it completely fails to provide the structured digital literacy and specific customer handling skills that are so necessary for modern retail transformation. And regarding motivation, this quote from a store manager perfectly demonstrates Hertzberg's hygiene factors playing out in real life. Incentives such as sales bonuses encourage us, but they are not consistent. Motivation would be higher if recognition came more regularly. The financial incentives act as those hygiene factors. They literally just keep people from quitting. But the lack of structured, top-down recognition is severely limiting their true long-term motivation and engagement. Section 5. The Cultural Balancing Act. Bridging the Gap for Retail Success. So the big question, how can organizations like Juno Fashion bridge the gap between global retail demands and their highly specific national culture? How do they adopt standard theories to actually work in their unique environment? Looking at the full survey results, we see that overall satisfaction is hovering right around a moderate 3.5. But to move from just okay to exceptional, the path forward requires a really delicate blend. Retailers can't just dismantle the hierarchy. They actually need it for transactional stability across those 65 stores. Instead, they've got to blend that clear, top-down direction with transformational mentorship and highly targeted employee development. So the crucial point is implementing actionable steps for adapting to Vietnamese retail culture. Number 1, implement structured top-down recognition systems. Why? Because praise from authority matters deeply here. Number 2, frame innovation not as some rogue individual pursuit, but as a collective group goal. This perfectly aligns with collectivist norms while still driving that necessary digital change. And number 3, increase transparent promotion criteria to tackle that low fairness score we saw earlier, which will naturally build intrinsic motivation. We've seen how Eastern values actively reshape Western theories at Juno Fashion. But listen, this isn't just about Vietnam, or retail for that matter. It applies absolutely everywhere. So I want to leave you with this question to really reflect on. How is your own national or corporate culture secretly rewriting the rules of your workplace? Think about the invisible forces shaping how your specific team communicates, learns, and leads. Understanding that cultural context is the ultimate key to true organizational success.